Good evening. This is the November 17th meeting of the Murfreesboro City Council. Welcome to those that are in the audience and also those that are on the TV. We have our pledge and our prayer tonight, and Councilman Sean Wright will be doing it.
Everybody bow your heads. Dear Lord, please be with the new leaders of our federal government, our state government, and our local leaders. Please help us make the decisions that you would like us to make our area bless you. Please be with those with spoken and unspoken prayers. It is your name and I pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Thank you. We have one ceremonial item tonight. It's our Star Awards. Mr. Wilkerson.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. I'm here tonight to recognize the recipient of the Stars Awards for October of 2022. Tonight's ceremony is extra special to me because I'm very familiar with the recipient and also the beneficiary of this recipient's action. As you know, the Stars Awards Service Excellence Program is intended to recognize outstanding full-time and part-time employees who embody the city's standards for service excellence and exemplify the city's core service values. The purpose of the Stars Award is to recognize and reward those employees who go above and beyond their normal job duties in providing outstanding customer service to internal and external customers. The recipient of the October 2022 Stars Award is Ronald Head. Here's a little about Ronald and the reason he's receiving the award tonight. Ronald is the system coordinator for the IT department. He's been with the city now for a little bit over a year and a half, and he's doing an outstanding job. In fact, he recently was promoted back in July in his current role. I've had the privilege to work closely with Ronald over the last several months because he's leading our upgrade to our financial and payroll system, which is called Munis. I've learned that Ronald has a very quick mind, so I wasn't too surprised when I heard the details of his quick reactions. Coincidentally, the person who was the beneficiary of his action also has a quick mind as well, as you'll see in the story. So here's a summary of Ronald's heroic actions. On the 22nd of October, a fellow employee, Stephanie Alexander, was eating lunch in one of the break rooms here in City Hall. This break room sits adjacent to Ronald's office. There's a wall that separates the break room from Ronald's office. Stephanie began choking on something while eating. She was all alone and no one else in sight, so she figured no one would come in soon. So she quickly thought that she needed to do something to get someone else's attention. As a call for help, she began to bang on the wall in the break room. Well, guess who was on the other side of the wall? Ronald Head. He quickly assessed the situation. He dropped everything he was doing, jumped up out of his seat, and ran next door into the break room. And there she was, a fellow co-worker, struggling to breathe. He knew exactly what to do. He wasted no time to begin performing the Heimlich maneuver on Stephanie. He was able to clear her airways clearly so she could breathe again. He de-escalated the situation prior to the paramedics arriving. So regardless of one's role, Ronald exemplified the importance of learning first aid. You never know when you have to save someone's life. So, Mr. Ronald Head, if you would, right behind me, thank you. So, on behalf of the city of Murfreesboro, we want to thank you for your heroic actions in saving someone's life. Thank you.
Way to start the meeting. All right, we have our consent agenda before us. Do I hear a motion to accept the consent agenda?
Motion.
I'd like to see item number 6 on that agenda.
Okay,
I would recommend we defer that to a later council meeting.
all right.
And the reason for that is, I believe there is a tennis board or commission that was just newly formed. And so I think it'd be proper that whatever contracts or agreements that pertain to tennis should go through that board first and then come back to council.
Well, if we could we drop that down and address that really quickly, just so council understands where we're at timing-wise, but there's a motion pending, so we can do that, and then we'll go back to item 6.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Well, I think we're motioning to approve without item 6, right?
Without-
So I'll amend my motion. Motion to approve the consent agenda without item 6.
Second.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Call the roll.
Ms. Averwater?
Aye.
Ms. Scales Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Maxwell?
Aye.
Mr. Wright?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Shacklet?
Aye. Okay, we have one item being pulled from the agenda, number 10. It'll be pulled from the agenda tonight. So we have an ordinance 22042, fiscal year 23 budget amendment. Ms. Tucker?
Thank you. We have one change for council to consider before approving the amendment on second reading. Community Development has a small carryover in federal grant revenue and expense from last year that needs to be rebudgeted this year. I recommend approving this change and then approving the budget amendment on second reading.
All right, do I have a motion to approve the amendments?
So moved.
Second.
And a second? All in favor? Well, excuse me, we've got to call the roll.
Ms. Averwater?
Aye.
Ms. Scales Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Maxwell?
Aye.
Mr. Wright?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Shacklet?
Aye. All right, on the ordinance now, ordinance 22042, fiscal year budget amendment. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Have a motion, second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second, call the roll.
Ms. Averwater?
Aye.
Ms. Scales Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Maxwell?
Aye.
Mr. Wright?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Shacklet?
Aye. All right, ordinance 22OZ39, zoning property along North Thompson Lane, on second and final reading.
So moved.
Second.
Motion a second. Call the roll.
Ms. Averwater?
Aye.
Ms. Scales Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Maxwell?
Aye.
Mr. Wright?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Shacklet?
Aye. All right, resolution 22R24, fiscal year city schools budget amendment. Dr. Duke.
Good evening, Vice Mayor and Council. Excuse me. Tonight, I am presenting a resolution for your approval that recognizes several budget amendments, all of which have been approved by the City School Board. All but one of these amendments represents new grant revenues or changes to state awards. These include recognizing a $25,000 donation from the Jennings and Rebecca Jones Foundation for funds for our district's Gifted Academy for high achieving students, a $25,000 donation from the Nissan BEP Foundation, which supports our district's STEM program, rebudgeting $102,000 in carryover funds from the Department of Education's Safe School Grant, budgeting new grant money from School-Based Healthcare Solutions Networks for $283,000, and $58,000 from the Resilient School Community Grant to fund mental health supports within our schools, and recognizing $2.6 million for the FY23 American Rescue Plan Child Care Stabilization Grant from the Tennessee Department of Human Services to support our before and after school extended school care program. The final budget amendment is to our general fund. It transfers $500,000 from our general purpose fund balance to our federal fund for cash management purposes, as federal grants are reimbursement grants. And I'm happy to answer any questions the council may have.
I appreciate you taking the time to make sure there's funds in there for mental health. That's a big issue in our schools.
And if I might add, we are really appreciative of our staff who sought that grant out to help make sure we have those mental health supports, and that will actually fund 3 full-time mental health therapists at 3 of our most at-risk schools for the next 5 years.
Yes, sir.
Awesome. If there's no other questions, I move for approval.
Second.
Motion and second, call the roll.
Ms. Averwater?
Aye.
Ms. Scales Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Maxwell?
Aye.
Mr. Wright?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Shacklet?
Aye. Before you leave, we had a wonderful event, a new event. That'll be an annual event, I understand, last night for the city schools, and I wish you'd tell the council about give a little exposure to that.
Yeah, absolutely. Last night, we had a fantastic night. We had our first Murfreesboro City School Hall of Fame event. We know with a 127-year history of a school system in Murfreesboro City Schools to recognize those educators who've made a difference and laid the foundation. So last night, we honored 10 what I would call foundational members of the city school community, including Miss Scales Harris' mother. Mary Scales was one of our honorees, as well as 9 other very worthy people. It was a great night, and we look forward to doing it every year.
Well, thank you. I
Thank you.
appreciate that recognition and appreciate all the work that went into all those many years towards our public education in Murfreesboro. All right, on motion now, we have change order number 1 to construction contract at Siegel Soccer Complex. Mr. Elliott.
Good evening, Vice Mayor, members of the council. I stand before you on behalf of administration and staff to seek approval for change order number 1 to the construction contract at Siegel Soccer Complex with Hawkins and Price LLC in the amount of $27,708. The change order number 1 includes changes in costs for additional items, including concrete curbing, extra soffit lighting, weatherproof transformer electrical disconnect, and stormwater collection piping systems for downspouts to ensure proper drainage. Council priorities served is responsible budgeting. The amount of the change order, $27,708, is accommodated with the project budget and is funded in fiscal year 2021 CIP and LPRF grant. I thank you for your time tonight and can answer any questions at this time.
No questions. So moved.
Okay,
Second.
we have a motion, second. All right, call the roll.
Ms. Saberwater?
Aye.
Ms. Scales Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Maxwell?
Aye.
Mr. Wright?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Shacklet?
Aye. Now the appointment of a board of trustees to the Community Investment Trust. The Board of Trustees, this was to be presented by the mayor, so.
I'll take it.
Okay, thank you, sir.
All right. As council knows, the proceeds from the sale of the electric department that we'll receive over the next 13 years now, if I do the math right, 12, 13 years, will be put into a trust which allows the funds to be invested. Council has considered the applicants to fill the Board of Trustees that will handle that trust last Wednesday and decided on 7 individuals. The individuals' trustees' terms will be staggered initially to allow for staggering in future years, and that there'll be a continuity of knowledge as the board goes forward over the many years that it's planned to be in existence. So they were assigned with random numbers on who would serve what term, and you have those before you. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer those.
Anybody have questions?
It's a powerhouse team of financial folks. so-
Yeah, it's a great group. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Call the roll.
Ms. Saberwater?
Aye.
Ms. Scales Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Maxwell?
Aye.
Mr. Wright?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Shacklet?
Aye. Might make the comment that we have a group of people who have volunteered to be on the Committee on Contributions, and I guess we'll have a future. You want to speak a little bit to?
Yeah, we continue to seek some applications for that. We now have 8 applications, so we could, the committee can be formed up to 9, so there's room for one more if anyone's interested, or additional applications the council can consider.
Is it 9 or is it 12?
It's from 5 to 9.
5 to 9?
Yeah, is the committee, how it's composed under the trust document. Yeah, so I think that in the near future, we'll bring back that to council to make that appointment to the committee, and then we can move forward. Their work won't be immediate, so it'll be a little bit down the line, so we're not in a rush for that.
Okay. All right, thank you for that update. All right, we have a commercial operator lease with Mike Jones Aircraft Sales.
Yes.
Mr. Gerke.
Yes, your first item on the consent agenda was, I believe, the last change order, and I think the final payment for that project is being processed at this time. We have a lease agreement with Mike Jones Aircraft Sales. As you recall, in 2019, the City Council approved a grant that came to us for economic development project over $2 million from the state to build a hangar for a project for a business here that was expanding in Mike Jones aircraft sales. And so that project went through a pandemic, labor shortages, transportation issues, and even the contractor who was building that building went through some major changes, and we are finally to the point where that project is complete, and Mike Jones is getting ready to occupy and start business in that facility. The rent will provide over $107,000 to the airport for revenue, and if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them at this time.
No questions, so moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Call the roll.
Ms. Averwater?
Aye.
Ms. Skels Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Maxwell?
Aye.
Mr. Wright?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Shacklet?
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, we have a contract for governmental affairs, 20 session of assembly. This would be our Mr. Tyndall.
Yes, for the last several years, we've used Ramsey Farrer and Bates as our governmental affairs consultant at the legislature. Legislature will convene after the first of the year, as they normally do, and so we have a contract that'll take us through next year with the same consultant. They've done yeoman's work over the last several sessions, and so their services are very valuable to the city. Any questions? Happy to answer.
If there are none, so moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Please call the roll, Ms. Brown.
Ms. Averwater?
Aye.
Ms. Skels Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Maxwell?
Aye.
Mr. Wright?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Shacklet?
Aye. Amendment to the rules procedure of the Disciplinary Review Board. Mr. Wilkerson.
Good evening again, Vice Mayor and City Council members. Staff is requesting your approval to change the title of the person assigned as the clerk of the Disciplinary Review Board to reflect the right person and add more communications options. On the Okay, all right.
Go. I think we're still.
Fire chief says we're okay.
All right.
They're doing work in the parking garage on the sprinkler system, and it will set off the alarm.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
We were
Everything's
warned
cool.
before.
Thank you,
Yeah,
folks.
it's all fine.
We all good.
Thanks for the heads up, guys. I'm the only one that didn't know that was happening. I was like halfway out the door in my mind.
Mr. Wilkerson, will you continue?
Yes, as I was saying, on the 26th of October, the DRB Board approved a change in Rule 2.09 and Rule 3.09 in its rules of procedure that reads, the clerk of the Disciplinary Review Board should be the city's employee service director or such other person as may be designated by the city manager. It also approved an adjustment to the communication options to include a email address that says basically the Disciplinary Review Board at murfreesborotm.gov. With that said, I'm requesting your approval for these amendments. I'm available for any questions or concerns you may have.
Could you repeat the first one? I'm sorry, I was still in the fire zone.
Oh, okay. Okay, all right, let me go back.
Just the
So
first
Rule two-
amendment, just the first one.
The first one is that the DRB approved that the clerk of the DRB Board be the city's employee service director or other person as may be designated by the city manager.
Thank you. No other questions. I move for approval.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Call the roll, Ms. Brown.
Ms. Averwater?
Aye.
Ms. Skels Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Maxwell?
Aye.
Mr. Wright?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Shacklet?
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, the purchase of rollout garbage carts. Mr. Gossett.
Thank you, Vice Mayor, Council. Good evening. Before you is the request to approve the purchase of 1,404 rollout garbage carts for new customers, for replacement damaged carts, and existing customers. This purchase for the Solid Waste Department requires these new carts. We've delivered a little over 1,169 carts year to date. That number's grown just a bit. This purchase is $93,390, and it is in our FY23 solid waste operating budget. And I'm available for any questions.
No questions.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second.
Ms. Averwater?
Aye.
Ms. Skels Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Maxwell?
Aye.
Mr. Wright?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Shacklet?
Aye.
Last time you were before us, you were sleepy. Your baby had just come. You look like you've gotten some rest.
No. Still no rest.
Oh,
You're just getting used to it
More
now.
coffee, right?
I can speak to that being until 36 more years. All right.
Vice Mayor, we need to go back to item 6.
Item
It was pulled
From
from
the
the
consent
consent.
Oh,
agenda.
okay, all right,
Yeah,
okay.
I'll take that. So the request is to approve or agreements with our tennis pros out at Adams Tennis Center. Right now, they are under contracts that we've extended for the last few months as we brought a new facility director on board, and we wanted to allow him to take a look at how the arrangements are made and what enhancements need to be made at Adams Tennis Center to make the center a lot more community engaged and kind of improve the services that are allowed over there. And there's been some discussions amongst the memberships that are over there, and there's a committee that's been formed, or a group that's been formed, I don't want to say it's a committee, to help provide input into some of the changes that are being considered, some programs that are being developed to go to the tennis center. The committee wouldn't weigh in on personal service contracts. That wouldn't be something that we would ask them to do. But what we want to do is mesh that closely with the other changes that may be made out there, other enhancements that are made, so that it all flows really well. And so we needed some additional time to allow the committee to talk about the different things that need to go on. And that's why we asked they be extended through next June. It's the exact same contract they've had for the last couple of years. There's no changes to it. This provides them a degree of certainty. The feedback from the pros is that they're happy that this will provide certainty because they're on the bubble right now. And in fact, their contracts will run out at the end of this month. And then they'll have no contracts, and we'll have no way to pay the pros. And our next meeting won't be until December. So this, as I said, gives us a chance to integrate new programs and other changes that need to be made out at Adams Tennis Center, to take the input we need from the group that's being formed to help with that, and then have the contracts renewed appropriately at the end of, or the beginning of next budget year.
Hey, Craig, can I make a suggestion? Maybe have a stakeholders meeting at the Adams Tennis Complex, because it seems to be there's a gigantic rumor mill, and maybe have a stakeholders meeting can get some of those rumors put to bed.
That's what we're trying to do and put together the committee. We kind of, it's taken a little bit more time than we thought, so I think we have the members now and we know who it is, and Nate's going to form them up pretty quickly and gather them together to allow them to talk. So that's been the plan, and that's what we're going to do. That's what we want the feedback. In the meantime, this doesn't, the contracts with the pros really doesn't change anything. It actually just extends the status quo to give time for all that to be worked through.
Yeah.
So that's the purpose of the PSAs being approved now. Administratively, we extended them. It's been about 5 months. It's kind of getting a little long to do it administratively, and that's why we brought it to council to do.
Wasn't the previous contract 70-20-10, or 70 and then 20% and 10% to the head pro or head teaching?
Well, yeah, that may have changed because we don't have a head teaching pro anymore. He's resigned, and there was no reason to fill that position again. So that may have changed on there, but the amount I think that goes back to, I don't know exactly, and Nate's not here tonight. Unfortunately, he's traveling. So I don't know the degree of that detail, but financially, from the city standpoint, it doesn't change.
And historically, you're saying that they would not, or any board or commission would not weigh in on
Negotiation of a personal service contract, no, we wouldn't ask for that. We'd negotiate those out or develop the form and then bring it back to be approved by council. That's been the process. So even if we had a committee, the Parks Committee doesn't do that. If we had the tennis committee, which existed long ago but was dissolved, wouldn't have done that. And the group that we put together to do the stakeholder input, to get the stakeholder input, they wouldn't be involved in that either.
Okay, is there a motion for any action on the part of council?
So what would be the repercussion if we wait on this? I mean, what will we lose? You were asking about a committee, Mr. Maxwell?
Yeah, I guess from my purview, I would feel better, even though, Mr. Tyndall is basically saying they shouldn't weigh in on it, historically don't weigh in on it. I would feel better if we extended the existing contract, say till the end of the year, and let this new tennis committee at least have taken a look at it, had a say-so. I don't play tennis. You're not going to see me out there with a tennis racket in my hand. I don't know anything about tennis. I stink at tennis. But I'd feel much better if tennis people weighed in on this and brought it back to the council, is what I'm saying.
How about let's go 90 days, and that way it's going further towards June, but it gives 90 days for the committee to look at it or not look at it. Gets kind of a half in between. So moved on 90 days.
I'll second that on 90 days, to extend the existing one, then let the new committee weigh in on it.
To clarify, does the existing one expire at the end of the year?
End of this month.
End of this month?
Yeah.
So that puts us at the end of February?
Right.
With the holidays,
Right.
that's just really quick.
That's what I'm saying. That's why I didn't want to do 60 days.
I think that's fine. We may be back and ask for another extension.
Yeah,
which
that's
is-
fine.
Which is fine, too.
Yeah, that's fine.
That doesn't, this gives us breathing room, and that'll be fine. But I do want to clarify that this committee, that's not the purpose of this committee, and we wouldn't engage. I don't want to, there's been enough crosstalk, and as Councilmember Wright mentioned, feedback, for lack of a better term, to council from members out there. I don't want to misstate what their role is, and their role wouldn't include this type of an agreement or anything close to that. It's to advise on what's being thought of and different programs that are being put, and just to give input into those.
Okay, we have a motion to extend this contract administratively, I'm assuming, just through your office like you've done before?
Well,
Or
just
would that be
council
through
would do
us?
it now.
Okay.
I mean, before it was administrative without
You
council,
didn't bring it
but,
before council?
yeah, but now council will do it.
30th to February 28th.
Okay, for 90 days?
Yeah.
All right, and we've got a motion and a second. Call the roll.
Ms. Saberwater?
Aye.
Ms. Skels Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Maxwell?
Aye.
Mr. Wright?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Shacklet?
Aye. All right, we have, as far as I'm aware, no board or commission appointments, is that correct?
No, sir, we don't.
Okay. Licensing, any licensing we have to do?
We have one regular permit for an ownership and name change for a nightclub at 302 West Main Street.
Okay.
The applicant has met requirements for a permit and is recommended for approval pending Building and Codes final inspections.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Motion.
Second.
Second. Call the roll, Ms. Brown.
Ms. Saberwater?
Aye.
Ms. Skels Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Maxwell?
Aye.
Mr. Wright?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Shacklet?
Aye. We have a statement before us.
That's been pulled.
That's been pulled.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. No payments. Is there other business before our?
I think for this new tennis committee that Jamie Aberwater would be a tremendous addition to the tennis committee in the future. So I'm just putting that on public record, so.
That's payback for earlier.
Okay, good. Take that into consideration.
I think I'd rather see you in the outfit, Mr. Maxwell.
If there's no
I
staff,
think we're playing tennis here. All right.
if there's no staff other business, I've got something I want to bring up. Mr. Tucker's been working on a council ethics policy to deal with some conflicts of interest and things like that for a couple months, and I'd like to see if you could bring that to us for the December workshop.
Certainly, and I would just clarify that it's an ethics policy both for city officials and city employees.
Fantastic.
That's great.
All right. Any other business?
No, I'll say right now, we're looking at December the 1st for a council meeting, and then a council meeting on the 7th, or I'm sorry, the 8th. Some of that's going to depend on what it looks like from business. We don't want to have, during this time of year, to gather council up for a meeting that only has a few items in it, so we'll try and manage that a bit. And then the workshop that Councilmember Wright just mentioned will be on the 14th.
So the 1st, 8th, and the 14th of December when we're meeting.
Right.
December 1st, December 8th, workshop on the 14th.
And then we'll probably not meet because of holidays after that until the new
January
year.
the 4th or whenever.
If
Okay.
we can get you in town long enough.
All right, good. Any other business? Any other comments?
You did a great job, Vice Mayor Shackle.
Great job.
I get to do, never gotten to do this before. Well, one comment I'd like to make, you know, there's lots of things in this world and in all our communities that divide us, but the one thing I think all our citizens can agree on, we live in a very special place. And as we approach Thanksgiving next week, since we're not going to be meeting, I hope, trust that we'll all have a safe holiday, and we will appreciate the community that we live in and the people that we're sharing life with. We live at a very special place. And I thank you for the opportunity to be the mayor tonight. We're adjourned.
Great job, great job, great job.
Great job, Bill.
Good job.